Everyone, Simon here. Some time ago, about a year and a half ago, just after the Ukraine war started, a student of mine emailed me a question. And the question was, hey, I live in Germany. Am I safe? And number two, is this the beginning of World War III? Now, I thought, what a ridiculous question, you know. But then again, what do I know? I live in the US. So I pulled the chart. And you wouldn't believe it, but the answer to both questions was yes. And so, of course, it's my duty to report that. I reported it to him and I said, hey, you're safe. You're going to be fine. And it looks like the world will be pulled into this conflict. And so he wasn't very comforted by that. But it got me to thinking, like, let's see. I mean, let's see what happens. That was a year and a half ago. And this year, like every year, a colleague of mine named James Kelleher does his annual world prediction. So what you want to do is go to jameskelleher.com and order that, and order any and all of his great courses that he has on divisional charts, financial astrology, prashna, and so forth. So why? Because he's an excellent teacher, and he's one of the few astrology teachers who teach seriously and serious astrology. It's not about fancy techniques and ooh, if your Brigo point is here and you've got this, then this is gonna happen. And it's not that. That's for teenagers. Okay, that's for adolescent mentality in Jyotisha. If you want to become a serious Jyotish practitioner, consider people like James Kelleher, and there are a few others, Mark Boney as well in the West, and I'm sure there are other great teachers whom I don't know about. And for what it's worth, I fall into that too. I'm all about lucky times and this and that, but I also do have a foundation of classes on YouTube, beginning level. And if you don't know them, if you haven't seen them on, I have various channels. They're all free. So look up Simon Chikoisky, Vedic Astrology, and I have a number of playlists that will take you through the basics, the essentials of Vedic astrology. So everything we're doing here is on top of that, right, to augment that. So the predictions we're going to make today about called mundane predictions about countries and war and so forth. This is considered rather advanced level stuff, and frankly, I'm not really even I haven't studied it enough to predict on it, which is again why I refer you to James, because he has that is a big part of what he does. And in fact, I'll be borrowing an image from one of his classes, and again refer you to him. But yeah, so to get the basics of Vedic astrology, I do have classes on decodingvedicwisdom.com as well. That is my website, which you can see below. And for very special stuff, you can check out my member site. So I guess this is the advertisement portion. So there are a lot of videos in my members page that I'm going to continue adding that most people can't see, including did one on your astrological menstrual cycle and so forth. Point is that the stuff we're going to talk about today is a little bit advanced, but it also doesn't require, it's advanced in terms of the maturity with which we must approach it. It's not necessarily advanced in terms of the techniques that we're using to describe the charts. So, so let's dive right into that, and let's start with actually a look at the chart of the Ukraine. This is the horoscope for the Ukraine, and we can actually extrapolate some lessons here. Lessons on Vedic astrology and perhaps even lessons on life. So with the chart of the Ukraine, what we have is the ascendant is occupied by Rahu and a couple of other outer planets. In fact, Uranus, Neptune, and Rahu. Furthermore, that ascendant is aspected by Mars. So that's two malefics hitting the ascendant, the identity, the essence, the body of this chart. That's not a great start. Excuse me. But it gets even worse because the ruler of the ascendant, and mind you, I'm using the North Indian, but you could see it here in the South Indian as well, that the ruler of the ascendant, being Jupiter, is in a planetary war. Oh, geez. The planet Jupiter is in a planetary war. And that is so rare, by the way. It happens once or twice a year for a day. And they just happen to, inaugurate their country on that day. So this is greatly destabilizing to a human being, to a country, to anyone, to a business, if the ruler of your ascendant is in a planetary war, because it creates the illusion of having to pick one thing or another. Oh, I got to be a doctor or a lawyer. And the problem is, part of you wants to do both. When it comes to a country, you got to pick, am I Ukrainian? Am I Russian? And maybe part of them, there is an element that wants to be part of Russia. There's an element that wants to be, stay independent. And there is this planetary war. Now, in a planetary war, what we can look at is who wins the war. Now, there are a couple of ways to do that. One is to see which planet is brighter. And in terms of magnitude, Jupiter is actually brighter. So you can see it's minus 1.73 magnitude. So in the astronomical scale, a planet, the lower the number, the brighter the planet. So you could see sun is minus 26, moon is minus 12. And then there should be Venus, which is minus 4, right? Venus is always the third brightest. Then Jupiter is minus 1.7, and Mercury sees 4. Now, the average star in the sky is about 3 magnitudes. So Mercury was extremely dim at the time, even though he was retrograde in the sky. The other way to see which planet wins is which one has higher declination. Now, in this case, Jupiter again wins this planetary war by having a declination of 1335, and Mercury's 9. So Jupiter wins this planetary war in both accounts. And some people even use a third method, which is not a good method, in my opinion. But if even by that method, Jupiter wins, being it's the planet with the lower longitude. Not declination, but longitude. So Jupiter is at 213, Mercury is at 217. So by all accounts, Jupiter wins this war, which is good. So you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you make a choice. I'm going to be a doctor. And that's actually a good choice because it's more in line with who you are and you get support in doing that thing. But part of you will still want to be the other thing, and there will be a conflict inside you always. And so here we go. This is the chart of a country, ladies and gentlemen. And we see this playing out in the world stage. Now, when the ascendant is weak, it invites disease. So if a human being, if your ascendant is weak, you will have illness, you will have sickness. It will invite other things to want to invade you. And so similarly here for this chart, this is a very troubled ascendant with a malefic Rahu. Now, the malefic Rahu in the ascendant immediately makes the country an outsider. It makes it different from the norm. It stands out. It's in some way, in my 5 dharma types, this is an outsider country. Okay. Again, Mars aspecting from the 10th is not great. And you're going to say, well, Jupiter aspects back in. Yeah, but Jupiter is heavily afflicted. So there's not much protection that he can give to his own ascendant because there's another affliction we haven't discussed yet, which is that it's also combust. So now the ruler of the ascendant is combust and in a planetary war. That planet can't give much help, so it needs help, isn't it? So this is played out on the world stage that uh, the Ukraine is requiring help in order to protect itself. Um, so this is the chart of the Ukraine. Let's go to the chart of Palestine just to give you yet another example here um, of an extremely difficult chart. This one is perhaps even more difficult because the first thing when we look at the health of a person is the first thing that I taught at the Ayurvedic Institute when I was teaching Ayurveda students, Jyotisha. The first yoga was Bala Arishta Yoga. Bala means child, not Bala. Bala means strength. Bala is child. That's why and make a big difference in Jyotish. I mean, in Sanskrit and in Jyotish, of course. Um, so Bala Arishta. Arishta means illness, a misfortune, disease, so forth. And the combination states that when the moon hits your eye like a binga pizza pie, that's amore. No, that's a different yoga. When the moon is in a dusthana, houses specifically a trikasthana, houses 6, 8, or 12, with a malefic, Balarishta yoga. Now, why the moon and not the ruler of the ascendant, for example? Well, you can use the ruler of the ascendant. The moon is more fundamental because it rules the rasa, the lymph, the the digestion, the blood, the truly developmental aspects of a human being that are especially important when you're a baby because all your nourishment comes from milk, right? Your mother's milk. That's the moon. And when that is afflicted, when you're not able to absorb nourishment, then you are stifled from the beginning. You can't grow. And Balarishta comes in different categories: severe, medium, and light. There are certain cancellations, but just its presence indicates a predisposition to malnourishment and disease. And what do we have here if not the moon in the eighth house with Saturn? And again, you might say, well, Jupiter aspects, great. Jupiter is the sixth lord, the lord of enemies and disease. Yes, and also the ninth lord. But you get it. It helps, sure, but it's not great. But on top of that, on top of it, remember in Ukraine's chart, you had a number of things: malefics and the ascendant lord in the planetary war, and the ascendant lord combust. Like that's a horrible triple whammy. Here we also have a double whammy in that we have the moon in the eighth with a malefic, but we also have the ruler of the ascendant, who happens to be the moon, in the eighth with a malefic. So in a sense, it's a double whammy. And and we have Gulika on the ascendant. Gulika is a shadow. We have um, we have an exalted sun on the 10th house, aspected by the 8th Lord Mars, aspected by the 12th Lord Mercury, and the 6th Lord Jupiter. So it means an authoritarian tendencies, exalted warrior, Kshatriya planet, uh, with all the bad influences, Lord 6, 8, and 12. So uh, what can you do? I mean, when you start life with such a difficult chart, um, what's the remedy? Well, the remedy is get a new chart. And the good thing is countries can do that. And it just truly blows my mind um, why certain countries don't don't consult the stars before they do this thing, because this kind of thing will affect the rest of your existence and all of the citizens in it. If I'm a person with a bad chart, that basically affects me and maybe just my family. But if I'm a country with a bad chart, that's literally millions of people. So it blows my mind that, you know, the countries don't consult Jyotishis. Now, let me contrast this. You might say, well, is every country in the Middle East possessed of a bad chart? Well, not necessarily. Look at this is the chart of Iran. And by the way, this is all sort of leading into a kind of what I predict for this year. But we want to do some Jyotisha first, and before we launch in the descriptions. This is the chart of Iran. And if you'll notice, we have this is the opposite now. Well, kind of. The ruler of the ascendant, which happens to be the moon, now is exalted in a positive bhava, while an exalted benefic sits in the ascendant. That now, if this were a person, that exalted benefic happens to be Jupiter. So people with very strong Jupiters become know-it-alls. It's ironic because when you see the charts of really good scholars, you often find debilitated Jupiter or debilitated Mercury, like Joseph Campbell and others come to mind. Because when you have a debilitated planet, you need more of that thing. Debilitated Venus, you're looking for love. Debilitated Mercury, you're looking for knowledge. Debilitated Jupiter, you're looking for higher knowledge. Exalted Jupiter, its own sign Jupiter, I know what I know. No, I know better than you. They're know-it-alls. And that can be a problem, actually. And you often see it. It's hard to argue with people with exalted Mercury or exalted Jupiter because they probably will know a lot, and they know that they know a lot. And so it can make them a little arrogant. Now, in this case, Jupiter happens to be the ruler of the ninth house of religion, philosophy. So they know that they're right when it comes to spirituality or whatever, like in their mind. And it makes sense that this is a theocratic state because the ninth house is so powerful. The ruler of the ninth is exalted in the ascendant. Okay. The ruler of the 10th goes to the ninth. So the executive of the nation defers to the priestly class. So it's the priestly class who, in theory, rule here. Now, the moon is still aspected by Saturn, and that is a very nasty Saturn because it carries Rahu's aspect with it, and it's the eighth lord. And there's a lot of bad stuff happening in the second house and the eighth house. Second house is the house of food. So there may be food shortages at certain times, but it's the house of speech, very harsh speech. And it's the house of basically what goes in and out of your mouth. But also money and wealth. So this is very, very hard to have. But my point is not to go into a deep analysis here, but that this country is going to be, believe it or not, difficult to defeat. It depends on the Shah periods and so forth. But I just wanted to show you an example of a chart that is actually quite powerful. So what are we left with here then? So what does it mean? Are we going to go into World War III? Do we need to get in a spaceship and go somewhere? By the way, if you know where I am right now, put it in the comments. Bonus points if you do. Yeah, so what is the verdict? So let's come back to that. This year, 2024, has a lot of difficult aspects. Starting April 8th, there will be an eclipse, total solar eclipse. Now, of course, every year there are eclipses. But very close to that will be a conjunction of Mars and Saturn. And then Mars is going to go over that eclipse point in May. which suggests that this year is a very warlike year. Now, does that mean China will invade Taiwan? No, I don't think so. And in fact, if you want to get a full breakdown of that, do go and check out James Kelleher's talk. It's like $30. Every year he gives predictions, and it's always useful. He feels that it'll be in a few years, potentially. But just, yeah, check out his class. I'm not. I don't really listen to a lot of people anymore, but I do listen to a few, and just for my own edification. And those few to whom I listen, I suggest to everyone else. Um, and The point is that this year is going to have a lot of warlike aspects. Jupiter Saturn conjunction, a hard eclipse that will happen again over and across the United States. So let me, in fact, share the image. Here is the image. This is a screenshot again from James Kelleher's class called Annual Predictions for 2024. Go to his website, get the class. So I'm stealing this in essence, and I hope he doesn't mind. But this is very highly illustrative. This was the eclipse path in 2017, right after Trump was elected president. And if you remember, the country was divided in two, almost like a north and a south. It was like a Mason-Dixon line. And then this year, it'll be divided sort of west and east. But if you combine the two, it looks like a Confederate flag, doesn't it? Now, no one person, there's no person responsible. It's not Trump or anybody. This was in the cards. If you looked at the eclipse cycle 10,000 years ago, this was bound, it's supposed to happen, right? So it's not like we're causing it. We are simply participating in this energy. But again, this eclipse is happening and in essence completing this division of the United States that will continue to be further divided. The US is in a Rahu period, a period of suffering and great transformation. Rahu is in the 8th house of the US chart. So what does this mean? Do I think there will be a World War III that was like World War II or World War I, where major countries send troops and so forth? I don't think so. I hope not, certainly. But more and more other countries will be and are being pulled into conflicts, whether individually, like Israel and Palestine, or collectively, like Ukraine, Russia, and then all the forces, all the countries getting involved in that. To the effect that more and more there will be global conflict around the world. So that's how I define a world war. Now, here's the thing about conflict, though. Conflict is a stimulus for change. And again, we can go back to our own lives, guys. Sometimes conflict and fighting is a stimulus to get out of a bad marriage or a bad job, or in the case of Ukrainians, leaving that country and going somewhere else. I myself am the product of people immigrating and finding a better life in another country. I was born in the U.S. to immigrant parents because they couldn't live under the oppression of communism in the Eastern Bloc. So they risked their life, like literally bullets flying kind of thing, risked their lives to get out of there. And sometimes it takes that kind of pain to stimulate us to change. So if you have a difficult chart, if you have Balarishta yoga, if you have whatever it is, you know how much pain can stimulate us to action. And so my encouragement here to everyone is to see perhaps the opportunity, if there is an opportunity within this conflict, not to be a necessarily to be someone who, you know, a profiteer, or, you know, who profits from war or that kind of thing, because certainly corporations are profiting from it. The industrial, you know, complex, the military industrial complex is profiting. Not for that. It is to see what is the opportunity. Oh, here's an opportunity for change. Just like COVID gave us an opportunity to rethink our careers, to rethink staying at home, and you know, our domestic situations, because we had to. We had no choice. Similarly, pain of any form stimulates us to change, to learn more about ourselves, and so forth. So I would encourage you to find the opportunity. This year is a year of conflict, but also of opportunity. I looked at the Bitcoin ETF chart back in January when someone sent it to me, and I said, look, this thing is going to go up. But first, it's going to require conflict. It's going to require bad things to be happening in the world. And sometimes that's how things work. At the same time as there's bad stuff happening in one place, there are opportunities happening in another place. So Jyotisha helps us to see that, because you can see in any horoscope, one house may be afflicted. Let's say this 8th house is afflicted, but the 1st house is strong. And so there's going to be conflict happening in this area, but there's going to be benefits happening here, and so forth. So that's my little synopsis for today. My prediction is there will be more breakouts of conflict around the world. Certainly, this election in the U.S. will be controversial. You guys have my prediction on whom I think will win and why. Nadia and I did a pretty thorough job of that. I think that's actually in our members channel. So again, just click join. It's $2 a month, and you'll find those videos. But I think I posted also publicly. But still, there's going to be a lot of conflict. And what does this stimulate us to do? We have to become better. And we have to find the ways to do that. And by looking at our own charts, am I living in the right place? Sometimes maybe you want to move. Maybe you don't like the people around you anymore, and this stimulates you to finally move. Or maybe you want to become a you see all the suffering around you, you finally become a doctor because you're stimulated by all this suffering, or whatever life change it is for you. This year will provide you plenty of opportunity. And and this year will provide opportunity for cryptocurrencies as well. I think we're certainly back in the bull cycle, and so forth. It'll provide opportunities for anytime there are eclipses, for rebranding yourself. New yoga technique, new yoga routine, new workout routine, whatever it is, completely rebranding, changing your name, and so forth. Again, opportunities. So guys, I hope this was useful. I won't harp on about this. Let me know if you have any questions below, and if you can guess where I am. I don't know. I'll definitely respond to your comment if you have a question. All right. All the best for now, and we'll see you in the next one. We'll see you in the members channel. Hopefully, I'm making a video for the members next. All the best.